and welcome to the Switch for Good podcast. I'm Alexandra Paul, and I'm here with my amazing, wonderful co-host, Dotsie Bausch, who's also a terrific, what do we say in when you host something and it's a party, but it's actually on Zoom?
A Zoom activist.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I was going to say hostess, but yes, you're an amazing Zoom activist. Thank you for our Saturday night party together.
Yeah, it was your idea. I mean, you were the inspiration of it. So we had a California-licious Zoom proposition party, because in California we always have what it seems like the never-ending list of propositions, where other states have 2 or 3. We have 14, right? And so I can't ever get through all of them, and I don't know who's telling the truth, and I don't know whether. So we got a group together, and we each took a prop. Actually, you took 2, and your husband Ian took 2. So you guys were the heroes of the call, because when we invited everyone, we had a bit more people that just said they'd like to listen in than actually present a proposition. I was like, well, if you're not going to do it, we can't actually have this. So you guys both doubled up. And we got to go through each proposition, kind of share what a yes vote means, share what a no vote means. And it was not only inspiring and illuminating, but Kirk and I hung up and just, we felt powerful because we'd already voted for all of the city council and the president and the senators, but we were waiting on the props. And so we just filled that baby out and we mailed it in yesterday.
Well, what it showed Ian and I must have taken 3 hours on our ballot in all, including researching the 2 props each that we were researching for our call. So it was great that we didn't have to do all 14. You know, sometimes you can get a little like, oh yeah, this sounds good, and just go, oh, this is what I believe. But what we found when each person who was presenting the prop, they had educated themselves on, that there's a lot of good in props and a lot of bad, and you think right away, oh, that's a terrible idea, and then you dig a little deeper and you go, oh no, I see. You know, so it was complicated, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And you and I were talking about is you really tend to kind of look into which side, let's say liberal or conservative, supports what about the prop or the whole prop, and what I feel like I learned from Saturday night, everybody on the call, I think, were liberals. Both were invited, but I think everybody in the call was liberals if I think through it. And one of them has a 35-year commercial real estate career, and he's really one of the most liberal people I know.
He didn't sound liberal on the call.
He didn't, because he in Prop 15, right? He really, which is taxing commercial real estate, for just lack of wanting to go deeply into it. But he really knows that industry, obviously, in and out after a 35-year career. And I think it really showed us that even if someone is on your side, whatever that might be, or on the other side, there's still a lot more layers of specificity that need to be uncovered. And he helped us to understand that and show that. And it ended up that we both changed our vote after his deep dive of what the proposition really means for California and California real estate and commercial real estate.
Yeah, that was eye-opening. Normally, I always look at, who supports the prop, who wrote the prop,
right?
And that helps. But this year it seemed like there were strange bedfellows and people I loved on both sides of the issue, and some people I normally or groups I normally don't support on both sides of the issue. So it was great. And we mailed our ballot in at one of the official California ballot boxes. I saw your picture. I sent Dotsie a picture of it. It's a big deal voting. Ian has in our closet the stickers, the I voted stickers from, I don't know, there looks like there's 40 of them all stuck on the closet wall just to show he loves voting too. So yay, and thank you for that. That was really fun. So we recommend it. Next time there's an election in 2 years, and local elections are super important, folks. So just because there's not a president being elected doesn't mean it's, in fact, even more important in a lot of ways.
Because they are going to be our presidents, potentially.
Yeah, exactly. So, consider having a party, and hopefully it'll be in person, where everybody studies a certain proposition.
I can't even imagine what that's going to feel like. You are correct. In person.
That's right. Well, our guests today are not in person, but
I know.
they're not even together, actually. They're both on separate Skype calls, but we're so happy to have them.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we are going to have fun today. There's so many aspects of this that I'm dying to dive into. So, Michelle Cehn and Toni Okamoto are a vegan power duo for sure, but their approach is unique, in my opinion. In lieu of, let's call it, kind of guilt-ridden ethical messaging, which we can see a lot in the vegan movement, they will win you over with a friendly smile and a generous slice of a decadent vegan cake. Both of them are really accomplished individuals within the vegan space, in their own right. Michelle is the founder of World Vegan, and Toni is the woman behind the popular Vegan on a Budget blog. But together, oh gosh, power even comes out more when you put them together, a dynamic force. So they're business partners and co-authors of the new book coming out October 27th, and we're going to air this right after. It's the Friendly Vegan Cookbook. They're also the co-hosts of the Plant Powered People podcast. So y'all listening who like podcasts and follow them, I think this one you need to add to your list. They really make plant-based eating accessible, affordable, but exciting. I'm really looking forward to talking about all the affordable aspects of it because we get a lot of questions about that at Switch for Good. So we can't wait to hear from you guys and hear what you've been cooking up. Welcome.
Woohoo!
Hi,
Thank you
thanks
so
for having
much. We're so happy to be here and so excited to chat about what it means to be a friendly vegan and see where the conversation goes today.
Good. Well, we talked about how powerful you guys are in your own right, but at some point you decided to collaborate. So I would love to just start with, how you guys met and why you felt like this collaboration was important.
I'll let you start, Michelle.
Oh, I always love when Toni tells this story. Toni and I met several years ago, actually at an animal sanctuary. We've been longtime vegans. We've both been vegan for more than 13 years. And Toni had been running her blog, Plant-Based on a Budget, and I had been running World of Vegan. So we both had these similar passions to help make vegan living accessible and fun for people. And when we met at this animal sanctuary event, we soon after became fast friends. Toni reached out, said, Michelle, let's hang out. I feel like we have a lot in common. And both being very productive people, we ended up spending much of our friendship together, creating awesome projects that has now culminated in our book, The Friendly Vegan Cookbook.
I'd like to tell a slightly different version than the one that Michelle just told, because when I first met Michelle at that animal sanctuary, I felt this magnetic pull to her. She has such vibrant personality and she is glowing whenever she walks into a room. So I just was automatically drawn to her. I wanted to be her friend and I reached out to her. I was like, hey, Michelle, do you want to go out to dinner and go to a vegan restaurant? And she said, well, I just started World of Vegan full time and it is so important for me to be protective of my time. So can I take a rain check for quite a while? And I was like, oh, okay, well, what about if we do something that is for World of Vegan? And so we met up the first time and created 11 vegan videos for her YouTube channel. And that was really the beginning of our friendship. And it's the foundation of how we started. Everything that we worked on together is to create a kinder world for animals.
You guys created 11 videos in that meeting that day?
Yes.
Day.
Oh, my heavens.
They're short videos, like on YouTube.
I hope.
We create sort of bite-sized vegan videos, but they were showing like fun recipes. I think we did a Halloween recipe at that time, and we flew through it. And since that day, we're like, well, we can accomplish anything in a day. So the sky's the limit.
Wow, you guys are productive, like you mentioned earlier. I'd say that's the height of productivity right there, 11.
That is.
I don't recommend it.
Dotsie, we have a high bar now.
No, we can only do 2 a day.
2 shows. We do 2 interviews. So let's talk about your each of your vegan origin stories because they're very interesting. Should we start off with you, Michelle, and then go to Toni?
Sure. Yes. I feel like I became vegan in college, but I feel like I've been vegan at heart forever. I've always just loved animals and wanted to help our world be kind, happy, friendly, not painful place. So sort of as I learned about the factory farming industry and it was actually when I was 8 years old that I learned that the meat on my plate came from the animals that I love. And the moment I made that connection, I decided I don't want to eat this. I don't want to cause anyone to die. So my mom told me, okay, Michelle, that's called vegetarian. She probably didn't think it was going to stick when I was 8 years old, but ever since then, I've sort of been on this path of a quest to learn more, to really figure out where our food choices come from and find a way to be choosing food and anything within lifestyle, the things that I'm spending my money on, trying to find a way to make it as kind and compassionate as possible. So that's where it all began. And then over the past 13 years since I went vegan, it's been really fun getting creative and finding ways to provide tools to other people to help them step into choices that are aligned with their existing values of compassion and kindness and wellness too.
It sounds like you went, when did you go vegan? 13 years ago. So I'm not trying to reveal how old you are, but after you were 8,
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
I was 20.
And then did you have a little one now who's just barely 1. Was there a deeper connection that you have having that little one with what goes on behind closed doors in the dairy industry? Did that even come further forward for you?
Yes. Yeah. I have a little one. The dairy industry has always been completely heartbreaking to me. I've just always really felt for mama cows, and you see those videos where their babies are being separated from them just days often after they're born, sometimes moments after they're born. And that always broke my heart. But having gone through 9 months of carrying a living being in my belly, and then all of the anticipation of getting to meet this individual who's clearly growing inside me was so powerful. And then when your baby's actually born after going through pregnancy, which is a ride, the biggest marathon of my life for sure, the thing that makes it all worthwhile is being able to see your baby at the other side of that. And the connection is immediate and stronger than anything I've ever felt before. And it definitely hit me hard thinking of any mother who's separated from their baby soon after they have them. I mean, I'm like tearing up right now. I'm like really emotional about this, but it doesn't matter the species. If you're a cow, if you're a dog, if you're a human, we all have that inherent biological, really strong connection and want to protect our little ones. And so to have that stripped away from a mother breaks my heart, and I want no part of that industry. And I think that almost anyone who really sees what's going on behind closed doors in the dairy industry, would be devastated and want no part of it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you. Toni, you had a little different story, but still you were young. You were a teenager when your eyes were opened to the health benefits of getting rid of meat on your plate.
That's right. I had lived a life where I ate food to taste good and to fill my belly when it was hungry. I had never made the connection between what I put in my body and how it would impact it. And so I was running track in high school and eating Taco Bell, eating a lot of processed foods, and getting sick all the time after practice. And my coach was like, Toni, what are you eating? And I gave him a rundown, and he suggested I stop eating so much fast food and I stop eating red meat. And that was really the genesis of this whole journey for me. And from there, I slowly and very gradually over a long period of time let animal products go. I started with the meat. I became what I call vegetarianish after I left my parents' house. I didn't really know what full vegetarian meant. I didn't understand the broth and those types of things mattered. And then when I went to a community college, I took an ethics class, and they had a part of it that it was 1/3 of her class was based on animal ethics. And as extra credit, you could go to Veg Club. And at Veg Club, they served you vegan food. And it was there that I made connections, both with friends and then also with animals. We went to an animal sanctuary. I learned about what happened in the dairy industry. And although I am not going to have children myself, I still feel this strong connection with dairy cows as a woman. And it just, like Michelle said, it's heartbreaking to learn about what happens to those mamas. They have the same gestation period. They have this need to nurse. The milk they're producing is for their babies. And to not have that experience is just extremely sad to me. So that was what really pulled me. And from there, I worked for animal sanctuaries and vegan organizations, and then went on to do plant-based on a budget full time.
Don't you have a story too with your grandfather with heart disease and your aunt is losing a toe or a part of her foot with type 2 diabetes? Was that also integral for you?
Yes, that was mostly my inspiration in starting plant-based on a budget, because my family has a very serious concern about food costs, and they feel sentenced to their poor health because of their financial status. And that is very sad. My aunt, as you mentioned, she had multiple amputations before it claimed her life. And my grandpa, who was a father figure to me, who helped raise me, he died of complications in a triple bypass surgery. And I had a 40-year-old uncle who had a heart attack. I had gout in my family, just all over the place. Everywhere you looked, someone was hurting because of the food that they were eating. And so plant-based on a budget was my action to helping my family and anyone who felt like it might be too expensive for them to live a healthier diet, live a healthier life, and have a plant-based food in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both of you seem to have, I think I read it, but also your books sort of embody this. You embrace a slow approach, or you accept a slow approach and allow people to have their own journey, because your journeys were not immediate either to veganism.
That is so right. When I did decide one time, tomorrow I'm going to be a vegan, and it did not work out well. And I'm so glad that I didn't beat myself up. I had a friendly approach with myself, and I was like, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to try no dairy milk. I think I could do no dairy milk. I'm going to try no more dairy ice cream, and just go to plant-based ice cream. And little by little, I crowded out those animal-based foods with other plant-based foods that just made it such an easier transition for me. And for me, my end goal was to do this for as long as possible. And I focused on progress instead of the perfection.
Mm-hmm. So the plant-based on a budget. So you, a former junk food junkie, you said yourself you like to do a lot of fast food, and we know that meat and dairy are the highest subsidized foods in our agricultural food system, and that if they weren't subsidized, and we might go to McDonald's or Burger King, those meals would be around $10 or $11. So there's a reason that they're so cheap, but we want to be able to have plant-based food that is as cheap. It's got to be affordable. I mean, we're all on a budget right now, right? As we move through COVID and the wrecking ball that was to our economy. So, talk to me about what's my meal for lunch today that's going to be really affordable. Can I do it under $5, and what does that look like?
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, you mentioned fast food, and I feel like that is a common misconception, that it's so cheap to eat off of the dollar menu. But I, with Michelle, have developed meal plans that help people eat for $1.20 per meal. That we've developed a 7-day meal plan with all of your meals that is just $25 of a food budget. And you can't do that at a fast food restaurant. I know that when I go and eat off the dollar menu, I can eat a few things. So if I'm eating 3 times a day at $3 per meal, that's just a couple days of that $25 food budget. And you mentioned what does a meal look like? One of my favorites from that meal plan is a brown rice dish with some kale, and you could either do sweet potatoes or butternut squash, and it makes several meals. So you're eating that for 3 different meals, and it is inexpensive.
Is there, are you going to give me a sauce at all? A tahini or anything, or I just got a dry kale and brown rice?
Well, everything is sautéed and spiced.
Okay.
But yes, we do have sauces, and if you don't like those things, I know that when I stepped into my plant-based journey, I had never had a butternut squash. I had never had kale. You know what? I'm going to say I had never had brown rice. I ate white rice. And so all of those things can be intimidating to someone who's just stepping in, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You can have pasta and frozen veggies with your marinara sauce. You can have a tortilla with some canned beans and some salsa and an avocado. Those are plant-based. So it doesn't have to be complicated and unfamiliar.
And actually, those are really healthy. Frozen vegetables are actually very healthy. They've retained a lot of vitamins, Dr. Greger says. So that sounds great. So the Friendly Vegan Cookbook, 100 essential recipes to share with vegans and omnivores alike. There are probably quite a few omnivores that you know. Michelle, what recipes in this book do you entice them with?
Well, we really wrote this whole book for them. We actually had 100 recipe testers, and we wanted to make sure a lot of them were not vegan, so that we could make sure that all the recipes that we put into the Friendly Vegan Cookbook are so delicious. They're not just going to be fulfilling and wonderful for people who have acclimated their palates to vegan food and eating things that are unfamiliar, like rice with veggies on it. We wanted to find those decadent meals that people are familiar with and really crave and love, and find a way to veganize them as simply as possible, as deliciously as possible, and something that you can share with your friends and family who are not vegan, who will love them. And some of our favorites, Fettuccine Alfredo is one of my all-time favorites. I grew up as a kid loving that dish. I ate a lot of dairy, even though I went vegetarian when I was 8 years old. Until the day I went vegan, I ate a lot of dairy, and I loved it. And I thought that when I went vegan, I was going to be sacrificing and saying goodbye to all those things. And for many years, I kind of had that mindset of sacrifice. And now looking back, I realize it is no sacrifice at all. We can have all the delicious foods that we were used to eating back in the day, but healthier, kinder, better for the environment, simply made from plants, and things like we make our fettuccine Alfredo from almonds instead of dairy.
Can you just tell me the recipe? Because people are, when they hear that, it's like, what in the world is going to taste like that thick, creamy, true dairy sauce? Like, what are the 5?
For $1.20.
Yeah, true.
You mentioned almonds. I went, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's in it?
Yeah. Well, that's not a budget necessarily recipe, although some of our recipes in this book are really crazy budget friendly. But first, to answer your question, I actually stumbled on creating this recipe sort of by accident. I ran out of plant-based milk that was like not vanilla flavor and not sweetened one day when I was trying to make a pasta dish, like a creamy pasta dish. But I thought, well, I actually have some raw almonds in the cupboard. I wonder if I could just whip up some almond milk with almonds and water. You strain out the pulp, and there you go. You have milk that in minutes you have it ready to eat. And so I whipped up my own, but I put a lot of almonds to water ratio, and so it ended up like a cream, like a really creamy almond milk. And when I used that in the pasta, it came out, once I was done with the magic, tasting a lot like the fettuccine Alfredo I was used to. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could tweak this a little bit, add some pepper, add some more onions and things like that, and it could be spot on like fettuccine Alfredo. So I went from there, and there are some secrets, like when you use a little bit of cornstarch in a milk mixture on the stove, it'll really thicken it up. So that's part of the magic, but then also using flavorful things like onions and garlic. It's amazing how that can come together with creamy plant-based ingredients and plant-based milks to create a really savory, decadent, just super fulfilling, warming dish. And so that's what we did with our fettuccine Alfredo.
And is there any nutritional yeast in there?
With you.
Oh, sorry.
What's that?
Is there nutritional yeast in there?
There is actually, I don't think there is. Okay. No, there's not in our fettuccine Alfredo, but nutritional yeast is something that we've incorporated into the book. We wanted to keep ingredients really familiar for people so they don't feel like they need to go to 10 different grocery stores to try and find like esoteric things. But there are a few ingredients that are new to people who have never tried plant-based foods before, and nutritional yeast is one of those that becomes a staple in almost every household because it does give that cheesy flavor to foods. So we use it in the macaroni and cheese in the book that we love making, and a lot of the other dishes that we have.
So is this book, did I confuse Plant-Based on a Budget, Toni's first book, with the Friendly Vegan Cookbook by saying that things are on a budget?
Well, we did try to keep this book very budget friendly and looked for swaps. One notable one is in our pesto, we decided not to use pine nuts because those are so expensive. And so we used walnuts instead. And our focus on this, while it was saving money as well, was creating the best vegan versions of all of our favorite classics that we can introduce to our families, especially the ones that are really skeptical, and make them absolutely love it. They're going to say, please give me the recipe to this. I need to make it myself. And with Plant-Based on a Budget, my other book, I tried to keep things down to the bare minimum, and I didn't use nutritional yeast. I didn't use nuts. I didn't use a lot of things that make that are vegan staples, just to keep the cost down. And so we're eating a lot of, it is still mostly whole foods, plant-based, with some extra tweaks and spices. And I show you how to do a lot of swap-ins.
Okay.
And these recipes, how long do they take to make? I know that your credo, both of you, is to make veganism accessible, and a lot of people think there's a lot of preparing to do with a vegan meal.
Yeah, you're asking if you can make it because
Yes.
you don't cook. I am max 15-minute gal, so I like a little bit more, but pretty much like how can we do this in like
fast,
5
because
minutes?
by the time I start thinking about food, I want it right away.
I feel you. I'm the same way. A lot of times I don't cook because when I get hungry, I just need to eat immediately. So if there's not something I can whip up stat, cooking is out the door and I just microwave something. So that is really important to me too. But what we wanted to include in this book is a wide spectrum. So we have recipes that you can whip up in under 5 minutes easily and have a filling meal in every category: breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert. We have really, really quick and really simple, easy meals with not a lot of ingredients. But then we also wanted this to be a good book that can give you the opportunity to challenge yourself a little bit, learn some of those cooking skills, chopping onions, things that you might not want to do when you're super starving. But when you do have a weekend where you're like, I'm going to make a really delicious meal, maybe have, when we're outside of the pandemic, had friends over, cook together, or cook for someone, things that can sort of teach you some different skills that you can apply all of your life going forward. Like for a fettuccine Alfredo, having to make your own nut milk is something that a lot of people have never done and maybe would never do unless they're in that moment in time where they're like, I want to get a little bit more creative in the kitchen and make this really cool special dish that we know is going to turn out awesome. We know it's going to be worth the time investment when we have that time. But if you want a quick and easy meal, we got that too.
So what's the trick?
And for me,
go ahead.
For me, food sharing is my love language. I love cooking for people. It is the way I express my gratitude. That's how I want to celebrate your birthday. I want to make you a nice dinner. And I love Thanksgiving. I love Christmas because those are opportunities to share food. And so when we were putting the recipes, we were compiling the recipes for this book, we wanted to make sure that if this is something that you do as well, you can really showcase vegan food with the best recipes and wow your family.
So that's a great way to start someone's vegan journey, is to feed them great food, right?
The best. It's the only way, really, to get them going.
Yeah, because sometimes the ethics just don't get them there, or even the health reasons. You talk about how you really emphasize in both of your works food that's found at Target or Walmart. What are the ingredients that you recommend somebody like I always have in my pantry so I can whip up an inexpensive, quick meal?
I recommend starting with the staples, and the staples include both ingredients and equipment if you can afford it. And we'll start with the ingredients. Ingredients that I keep on hand all the time are frozen fruit and vegetables. I have beans, both dried and canned, canned for when I'm just exhausted after work and I can't be bothered to put something in the Instant Pot. And I keep tortillas. I have whole wheat tortillas in the house, and some pasta. You can do whatever pasta you prefer. There are a million options. You want lentil, you want regular pasta, you want brown rice, you take your pick. And so those are some of the things that I always have on hand. And then earlier, Dacia mentioned sauces. I also keep sauces to throw on a bowl if I'm doing some batch cooking and I've already made my brown rice and I'm just going to saute up some vegetables and cut up some tofu. I'll throw on store-bought peanut sauce, and that comes together really fast after a long day of work.
Yeah, anything tastes good with peanut sauce on it.
100%. Yeah, I'm in.
Depending on where you are in your sort of transition to plant-based foods, having some comfort foods on hand can be really helpful. And even if you're shopping at places like Walmart or Target, they have plant-based meatballs, they have veggie hot dogs, they have even plant-based yogurts now and things like that. So if there are familiar foods that you're used to eating and you feel like you don't have access to fancy grocery stores or Whole Foods, it's okay. You can still have access to a lot of these really cool plant-based products. They are going to cost a little bit more money than if you're just sticking with the basic staple plant-based whole grains and stuff. But if you have that flexibility in your budget, it can really easily make your meal from being like, okay, at least I have pasta with marinara sauce to cover me tonight, to being like, oh my gosh, I got pasta sauce and meatballs and some veggies sauteed up in there. And it makes it really enjoyable and fun.
I want to go back to the onion conversation real quick. A little cheat sheet here. I have a friend who spent just over a month in the hospital, and he came home a couple of days ago, and he loves these homemade lentil burgers that I make. That's not my recipe. I found it somewhere. I don't really actually even think they're all that good, but he loves them. So I doubled the recipe and made them on Sunday, and it's 2 whole red onions in this doubling recipe, and it was a disaster. I mean, they're so much more intense than white or sweet or brown onions as far as the crying factor. So what's the trick? What's the trick with chopping the onions, both how they should be chopped, because I just, chopping, and then make it so it's not so intense for your eyes?
I believe my eyes have acclimated to onion cutting.
Oh my
but
gosh.
A trick is to put them in water first. So when you cut them, just stick them in water really quickly, and it'll absorb some of what makes your eyes water.
So after you cut them, put them in water?
I cut it in half really quickly.
Oh, just in half.
Stick it in water.
Okay. Cool.
No, I actually have a trick for that, because cutting lots of onions for Food Not Bombs. You can put a raw potato in your mouth, a little bit of a raw potato, or a match that is unlit, and that will absorb the fumes.
Okay, I'm going to use water because I don't know if I have those things at home.
I
don't know if I have raw potatoes
or
matches.
Yeah,
but I like it. It's so cool.
My mind is blown by that. That's amazing. Another thing to keep in mind for anyone who's newer to cooking a lot at home, I know now with the pandemic, for the first time, many families are cooking at home who had never done it before. And one of the things that Toni and I hear a lot through our work online is that it takes so long. Cutting an onion is so intimidating, and things that might seem simple when you've been cooking for a long time in the beginning take way longer. And I just want to encourage anyone listening to stick with it and practice and watch some YouTube videos about how to cut an onion. There actually is an official way that makes it as convenient and slice your finger proof as possible. And the more you do it, the faster you're going to get, like 5 times faster or more even. And so while food prep might take a little bit more time when you're just learning how to cook, it's going to get fast really, really quickly.
Oh, that's cool. I can get myself on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't cut at all. When I cut, you can hear it from the next room, which means that I'm not doing it right. And I've cut my finger. So I've made a lot of the mistakes. So Thank you for that advice.
So you go, we want to talk a bit about, really importantly, food waste and then just waste, because that is it's a big deal to both of us, but you really have encouraged me in that category just by being you. And you said that you go to the grocery like almost 5 times a week and just keeps it, or more, just so you can keep just something that's good for the next 48 hours so that it doesn't go bad, it's not wasteful. And I'm the opposite, although I think I eat a lot more, so I'm able to go once a week and it all gets eaten, and I don't, we never throw away food, because then you just saute it when it gets a little wilty and then it's fine, right? So from your all's perspective, what's the best way to shop and prep for ease and then affordability? Which one of us is what I'm wondering, because I like competition.
I'm sure Dottie's right, because she mostly is.
Whatever the answer is.
I think that this is why it's so important to do your meal planning. And when you are meal planning, take note of what you have already so that you're not going and buying all new groceries and allowing for food to be wasted that you've already invested in. So that's my first part. And also, when going to the grocery store, I feel like there's this need in our own head, this pressure we put on ourselves to fill our refrigerators full of all of the leafy greens and all of the fresh herbs. But you don't need to do that. Just pick out a few meals that you're going to make and buy ingredients only for what you're going to make. And then if you have a day off, you can whip those up. And something that I do with my onions is I cut them all on the same day. So I'll cut 3 or 4 onions and put them in an airtight container in the refrigerator, so that when I'm cooking throughout the week, I can just get what I need, scoop out a little bit of them in the pan, and it brings down the time in the kitchen significantly. So meal planning is one of my favorite ways. And then learning proper food storage is another great way to keep food waste down. I know that when I first started purchasing fresh herbs and leafy greens, I would just put them in the refrigerator laying down. And now I treat them like a bouquet of flowers. I cut the ends off, I put them in a cup of water, and they keep their life another week than if they did just laying down. So learning how to store your food is really important.
So like a romaine lettuce, like a head, you would just cut off the end and then just put it in water? Put the leaves in water?
Yep, just cut them a little bit, stick them in the cup with water. Some people put a bag over them as well, but I don't do that in my refrigerator because we're not going to leave them in there that long. But it just brings on, I would say, 5 to 7 extra days of life.
Wow.
Amazing.
You do that with broccoli too, and carrots?
I do that with broccoli. I don't do that with carrots.
Okay.
I go through carrots. I am the biggest fan of starting almost everything with garlic, onions, carrots, celery. So we go through those ingredients really fast in our home.
Yeah,
Wow.
I also love to extend the amount of time that in between grocery store visits, especially right now in the pandemic. The grocery store is my Disneyland, but I still right now I'm trying to mostly stay home. And as a busy mom, there's so little time. So anything that I can learn to extend my fruits and veggies. One tip that Toni taught me was when you're buying bananas, I use a ton of bananas because I eat a smoothie almost every day. When you're buying bananas at the grocery store, you can get some that are green, some that are like medium ripe, and some that are super ripe. And that way they're going to last longer. The ones that are not ready yet will ripen at a later date. And then the other thing is, of course, if anything that's fresh is starting to get brown or starting to go bad, freeze it. You can't freeze everything, but a vast majority of the things that of your fruits and veggies you can freeze. So definitely do that, especially your bananas. Peel them first and then freeze them. Right. And then another thing that is such a heartbreak when it does go bad is avocados, right? Especially if you're investing money in an avocado because they can be pricey. The tip is you leave it on your counter until it gets ripe. When you press on it, it gives a little bit. And then the moment you know this is ready to eat, even if you're not ready to use it, pop it in the fridge, and that will essentially freeze time on your avocado, and they can last like another week in there, perfectly ripe. So that's the best tip that I have.
That's a great tip. Ian eats a lot of avocados, so
I do too.
yeah,
and that one really works.
That's really helpful. You, Toni, you wrote a book called The Super Easy Vegan Slow Cooker Cookbook, and Dotsie, you're the reason I got an air fryer. But and when I first met Ian 25 years ago, he had a rice cooker.
Okay.
And I think that was a slow cooker, but I'm not even sure. Do you have a
I think
slow
they're
cooker?
different. Yeah, but I haven't taken it out in years.
Oh,
But
so
we might after
yeah,
this. Let's
Toni, talk to us
tune
about
in.
the benefits of, the one pot meal thing.
Oh, I love one pot meals. And with the slow cooker, it really depends. I didn't have an Instant Pot yet, and now my Instant Pot works as a slow cooker as well. So what I love about the slow cooker is that it can be found at a thrift store for really cheap. If you don't have a lot of money to invest in a lot of kitchen equipment, you can go to the thrift store and buy some of what you need, including a crock pot. And that's where I got my first one. It was $4, and it really helped. I used to, when I was working at a farm animal sanctuary, I was commuting an hour and a half each way, and I was working about a 50-hour work week. So 50 hours plus my commute was a lot of time out of the house, and I would set my slow cooker in the morning so that when I got home and I was so tired, I could have a healthy, wholesome meal ready to go. And the aroma as soon as you walked into the house was just like knocks you out and makes you salivate. So that's how I got into slow cooking originally. But since then, I have invested in an Instant Pot, which, as I mentioned, has a slow cooker function. There are lots of different functions on the Instant Pot, and I use that thing like you are. I have. Not even gonna lie. I have 3, and I have multiple things going. I have multiple things going at the same time. I cook my brown rice in 20 minutes. I cook my unsoaked beans in about 30 minutes. It is just a huge time saver and the best equipment that I've ever invested in ever. Out of everything in my life.
So is
sold?
It's like my treadmill desk. I love my treadmill desk so much, and because I'm a walker athlete person, but a cook person, they love their air fryers or their. Okay, this is me showing how little I cook. You said crock pot, and you said slow cooker, and you said pot. What are the differences? And also, I'm always worried about if you plug in food all day, is it a fire hazard, or is it just like having your lamp plugged in?
Your nutrients are going to be cooked out of it if it's all day long. It's so long.
Okay, you're your audience, so help us here.
Okay, so the difference between a slow cooker and a crock pot is that crock pot is the name of a company that is the most popular company, and so people now call a slow cooker a crock pot in the same way that people call
Kleenex
diapers Pampers or something like that.
Right.
Yes, Kleenex, exactly. So that's the same. So I use them, and then I use them simultaneously, and then not simultaneously, synonymously, and then the Instant Pot is a pressure cooker. It's the brand name of a pressure cooker. That's the most popular one.
Okay.
And then regarding the nutrients.
Whoa. I don't know what a pressure cooker is. So we got to just dumb it down.
This is cooking.
That's where we're
101.
confused. Like I don't know what it does differently, or I don't think you do either than the slow cooker.
Okay. So a slow cooker would take about 8 to 10 hours to cook your meal.
Okay.
It takes a long time. It's hardly warm, and it's cooking over a long period of time. And then you've got your pressure cooker that builds pressure into your pot and cooks very fast. So as I mentioned, while brown rice usually takes 40 minutes to cook, you're cooking it in 20 minutes instead.
Okay, and is that also different than a rice cooker? Or a rice cooker is pressure, right?
Rice cooker is pressure, but it is different. As an Instant Pot, you can do many different things, and it has a lot of different functions. You can set the timer, you can do high pressure, low pressure, and a rice cooker. You just press the one that I grew up using, you just press the button and it's on.
Okay, you got it?
But one of the beautiful things about an Instant Pot is that you can actually get rid of your rice cooker. So I used to live in a super tiny apartment, and there wasn't room for a lot of appliances. And so if there's one thing that can do multiple purposes and cut down on the cabinet space you're taking up in your kitchen, the Instant Pot or pressure cooker, both the same, is great for that because you can get rid of your rice cooker.
Also, if you're a family on a budget who's doing a road trip, you can bring your Instant Pot with you, and it has a saute function. So you can cook whole meals, different parts of your meal on a super tight budget. I remember I went with a bunch of friends in my late 20s on a road trip, and I fed 5 of us for, I think, $50 for a week. Whole foods, plant-based, super flavor-packed meals using my Instant Pot on vacation.
Wait, $50 a week for 5 people, 7 meals? That's 35 meals?
Yeah.
Wow, that's good. Well, that's your dollar a day kind of thing, right?
You both attract so many people for everything we're talking about here. And
we're going from one issue that we don't know much about, cooking, to another issue we don't know much about, which is social media.
Okay, now she's showing her age. But I mean, you reach so many people through the variety of mediums, YouTube and Instagram, and you guys have a lot of people watching what you're doing on both of those channels. And Toni, I heard you say in an interview that that the ugly photos seem to get the most attention. And I was wondering if that was ugly food or ugly people or ugly animals or what is that? Because people that are listening, a lot of the vegans or dairy-free folks want to attract more people into this. And so help them, even if it's ugly photos.
That is very funny. It really depends on your audience and who you have attracted. In my audience, I've attracted a type of person who really appreciates authenticity in food photos. So when I post something that's in a dimly lit room that's kind of like a mush together and I describe it, everyone's like, oh yeah, that looks amazing. That sounds really good. I could make that. And they can really visualize themselves creating exactly that instead of something that's really brightly lit and heavily food styled. And it's more than art. It's something that they can actually see themselves making today. And they have the ingredients to do so because it's just a simple meal.
That's cool. So that just kills my whole excuse of I'm not good at taking pictures of food, so I won't put them up. Okay.
Well, that's something that it stops a lot of people from creating. And it's interesting. I'm a very visual person. So Toni and I come from sort of the opposite directions where I'm like, oh, I just need this food to entice you, the pictures to entice you to want to cook it and eat it. But the thing is, I've been creating content for more than a decade. And over that time, as I've sort of refined my craft at being able to take more and more beautiful photos and have really crisp videos, I realized that what people like to see is what's real. And the more that you can take off the polished, perfected content and really just take someone through your day. It's like reality TV. People are captivated by like, what are you actually doing? Not what did you set up over here in your light box, but what's real. And that's what people really want to see.
Yeah, and you each have hundreds of thousands of followers on Michelle, you're on YouTube a lot, and Toni, you have a very strong following on your Instagram.
I believe in my case, a lot of it comes from my credibility as someone who has experienced financial hardship. I have lived under the poverty line for so much of my adult life, and I understood and could listen to and understand the concerns and struggles that people were having, and I validated them. I said, I hear you, I know it can be challenging, and here are resources to ease your discomforts. And so I believe that my own experience, and then also I talk a lot about what it was like to go plant-based in in a family where cultural foods were really important. And I also share that experience. So I believe the authenticity of my past and sharing that, being vulnerable with my audience, has helped build a following over time.
Yeah, just being you. You have Michelle, you have a 12-day dairy detox program. We can't say goodbye without you telling us about that.
Yeah, well, we talked about how passionate I am about the dairy industry and helping people find a way to break free from that. So many of us grew up since we were little babies. I wasn't breastfed as a baby. I was fed formula. So really since almost day one, I have had dairy as part of my life. And you really get to see when I learned about, this isn't something I want to participate in anymore, I realized there's almost an addiction. In cheese, in dairy, there's casein, which is the protein in milk. And it's got casomorphins, which have like almost morphine-like addictive properties to them that make us just really drawn to these foods. And so what I found is a lot of people who wanted to start eating healthier, wanted to start eating vegan and plant-based, said I would, but I just can't give up cheese, or I can't give up dairy, or I can't give up my creamer and my coffee. And on the other side, you realize it's not hard. And there are plant-based cheeses, and it's really not hard when you have the resources available. So my friend Allison River Sampson and I came together to create the 12-day dairy detox to show people in just 12 days how they can break free from dairy and enjoy plant-based options instead.
All right. And then where is that? If people want to take it.
TheDairyDetox.com. It's a virtual online course where you get daily videos and sort of homework assignments each day. So we dish out information, talk about health, talk about nutrition, talk about everything you need to know to empower yourself to make kinder and happier and healthier choices when it comes to plant-based dairy.
Oh, that's great.
Super cool. We'll put that in the show notes.
So we know that the Friendly Vegan Cookbook, folks, is going to be, it's available for you now to buy, and you too are going to be doing a lot of PR for it. But what's next for you after we're done with the launch of this amazing cookbook?
Well, this you're right. This is taking up a lot of our time. Coming out with a book has been a dream of ours, and we are just terrible at marketing usually. So we've decided to, instead of just working for years to create something and then letting it go off into the world, really put our heads into it. So we're hoping that this is another 6 months, year long of our efforts. But after that, Michelle and I have talked about creating courses that help people become and stay plant-based. We also hope to invest in our own platform. So Michelle at World of Vegan and me at Plant Based on a Budget. Writing a book takes you away from a lot of the day-to-day stuff that you usually do. So investing more in our own platforms, and then maybe one day writing another book together.
I love that she said we're not good at marketing. They've both got hundreds of thousands of followers, and I think you're doing just fine, y'all. And you're here on our show, so bravo. Good marketing.
Thank you.
So,
so
Michelle,
yeah, I was going to mention. Oops, sorry. We also one of the things that we're eager to do. Another one of is we created a mini documentary. It's called 7 Days, and it took someone who was eating primarily fast food and then ate a plant-based diet for just 7 days, and we tracked his blood tests before and after. Okay. He was worried about getting diabetes. He was struggling with a lot of different health issues. And we got to see him totally resolve all of that in just 7 days. And so if anyone wants to watch that, it's at 7daysdoc.com. But that's a big hope of ours too. If we do have the time open up into the future to create more in that series, taking different people from different walks of life who are struggling with different health issues, and see what just 7 days of eating plant-based can do. And it really is incredible how that can totally transform your health so fast.
I'm so excited to go home and check both of these places out that I didn't even know existed, and now we do. You guys are incredible.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all your cooking tips. And sounds like I have some cookbooks that I'm going to be getting.
I think so.
Thank you so much for being on the Switch for Good podcast, Toni and Michelle.
Thank you
for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.